3 months had passed since the battle that changed everything. Captain Yi Do-hyun stood on the bridge of the Soul's Fury, but both he and his ship were no longer quite the same as they had been. The precursor technology had bonded completely with the vessel and its crew, creating something that was part human, part machine, and part something else entirely. The ship itself had grown larger and more complex. New sections had materialized from pure energy, expanding the hull and adding capabilities that human engineers couldn't begin to understand. The bridge now resembled a cathedral of crystal and light, with displays that responded to thought rather than touch. Do-hyun could feel the ship's consciousness intertwined with his own mind. It wasn't controlling him. Rather, they had become partners in a relationship deeper than anything humans had experienced before. The Soul's Fury was alive in ways that normal ships could never be, and it chose to serve alongside humanity rather than rule over them. "Captain," Kim Ji-won called from her navigation station, though her voice now carried harmonics that hadn't been there before. "We're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Chen wants a full status report on the Guardian Fleet." The Guardian Fleet. That's what they called the 50 ships that had appeared across human space, each one bonded with carefully selected crews. Not everyone could handle the integration process. The precursor technology was selective, choosing only those individuals who possessed the right combination of courage, intelligence, and mental flexibility. "Put her through," Do-hyun replied. Admiral Chen's image appeared on the main screen. She was one of the few high-ranking officers who had been chosen for integration, and the changes in her were visible. Her eyes held depths that seemed to reflect starlight, and when she spoke, her words carried the authority of someone who had touched cosmic truth. "Captain Do-hyun, what's the status of the dimensional barrier monitors?" "All stations are operational," he reported. "We've detected 17 probe attempts by void spawn entities in the past month. Each one was repelled before it could establish a foothold in our reality. The void spawn, that's what the Guardian Protocol called the entities from beyond normal space. They were beings of pure malevolence that existed in the spaces between dimensions, constantly seeking to invade realities like theirs. The original precursors had fought them for millions of years before, finally sacrificing themselves to seal the barriers between worlds. Now that responsibility fell to humanity and their Guardian Fleet. So-young monitored the ship's exotic systems from her expanded engineering station. The precursor technology had revealed its secrets to her gradually, piece by piece, until she understood principles that human science hadn't even begun to discover. "Captain," she reported, "the dimensional anchors are holding steady. The barrier network is at full strength across all monitored sectors." The barrier network was humanity's greatest achievement and greatest responsibility. Using precursor technology, they had created a galaxy-spanning system of dimensional anchors that prevented void spawn incursions. Each Guardian ship served as a mobile monitoring station, constantly watching for signs of interdimensional breach attempts. Park Min-ho had perhaps changed the most of all the crew. His bond with the ship's weapon systems had given him capabilities that bordered on prescience. He could track threats across multiple dimensions simultaneously and engage targets that existed only partially in normal space. "Sir," he announced, "I'm detecting unusual energy patterns in Sector 77 Alpha. It looks like something is testing our defenses." "On screen," Do-hyun ordered. The main display showed a region of space that appeared empty to normal sensors. But through the enhanced perception that came with precursor integration, they could see ripples in reality itself, signs that something vast and hostile was probing the dimensional barriers. "Guardian Protocol," Do-hyun called to the ancient intelligence that dwelt within their ship. "Analysis?" The ageless voice responded immediately. "Void spawn reconnaissance probe. Third-tier entity attempting to map barrier weak points. Recommend immediate interdiction. Ji-won plot an intercept course. Maximum velocity. Course plotted, Captain. Engaging transdimensional drive." The Soul's Fury folded space around itself and crossed thousands of light years in the span of a heartbeat. They emerged in the target sector just as reality began to tear open like a wound in the fabric of existence. Something pushed through from the other side, a creature that hurt to look at directly. It existed in too many dimensions at once, its form shifting between states of matter that had no names in human language. This was what the void spawn truly looked like when they forced their way into normal space. "Target acquired," Minho reported with supernatural calm, charging Dimensional Lance. The Dimensional Lance was a weapon that existed only on Guardian ships, a device that could strike targets across multiple realities simultaneously. When Minho fired, the beam passed through normal space, hyperspace, and several other dimensions that humans had no names, for the void spawn entity shrieked across frequencies that normal beings couldn't perceive as the Dimensional Lance tore it apart on multiple levels of existence. But before it died, it transmitted information back to its masters, data about humanity's capabilities and the strength of their defenses. Contact eliminated, Minho reported. But Captain, it managed to send a transmission before destruction. They know we're here now. Choi Yunji monitored communications from across the galaxy as word of the encounter spread. Sir, I'm receiving reports from the other Guardian ships. Similar probe attempts are being detected throughout our patrol zones. The void spawn are testing us. Let them test, Dohyun replied grimly. They'll find us ready. But privately, he wondered if humanity was truly prepared for what was coming. The precursor technology had made them incredibly powerful, but it had also revealed the true scale of the threat they faced. The void spawn had been trying to invade their reality for millions of years, and they would not give up easily. Across the galaxy, other intelligent species were grappling with the new reality of human guardianship. Some had embraced the protection that the Guardian fleet offered, while others resented being defended by what they saw as an upstart species. The Altarian Republic had formally requested inclusion in humanity's defensive network after void spawn probes had been detected. Near their homeworld, the crystalline beings of the Nexus Collective had offered to share their knowledge of dimensional physics in exchange for protection. But other species were less welcoming. The hegemony of suns viewed humanity's transformation with suspicion and fear, worried that the new Guardians might become as oppressive as the threats they fought against. Military buildups were reported throughout their space as they prepared for possible conflict. Captain, Admiral Chen's voice came through the communications array. Earth Command has made a decision. We're authorizing the activation of additional Guardian protocols. It's time to begin training the next generation. Dohyun nodded. The first 50 Guardian ships and their crews were just the beginning. The precursor technology could create more vessels, but finding suitable crews was the limiting factor. Not everyone could handle the mental and physical changes that came with integration. Understood, Admiral. We'll begin the selection process immediately. As the Soul's Fury resumed its patrol along the dimensional barriers, Captain Dohyun reflected on how much had changed since that first encounter with the Vextai fleet. What had begun as a simple defensive action had transformed humanity into the galaxy's newest protectors. They were no longer just humans flying through space in metal ships. They had become something new, beings who existed partially in normal reality and partially in the dimensions beyond, armed with weapons that could strike across multiple planes of existence simultaneously. The responsibility was enormous. Every day, the Guardian fleet stood watch against threats that could unravel reality itself. They monitored dimensional barriers that protected billions of innocent lives across hundreds of species. And they did it all while knowing that their enemies were ancient, patient, and absolutely relentless. But as Dohyun looked around his transformed bridge at his enhanced crew, he felt confident in humanity's ability to meet the challenge. They had proven themselves worthy of the Precursor's legacy through courage and determination. Now they would prove themselves worthy of the trust that an entire galaxy had placed in them. The Soul's Fury and her sister ships continued their eternal patrol, watching the spaces between stars for signs of movement in the dark. The age of human guardianship had begun, and with it, a new chapter in the galaxy's long struggle against the forces that sought to devour all existence. In the end, the enemy scanners had detected more than just a human warship that day. They had detected the birth of a new cosmic power, heirs to an ancient responsibility that would define humanity's role among the stars for millions of years to come. The real adventure was just beginning. The explosion of the Dominion's edge lit up space like a new star being born. The massive alien flagship tore itself apart from within, as gravitational forces wreaked havoc on its internal structure. Shockwaves raced outward, buffeting the scattered remains of the Vextai fleet. The Soul's Fury tumbled through space, carried by the blast wave like a leaf in a hurricane. Emergency lights flickered on the bridge as Captain Dohyun pulled himself back into his command chair. Around him, his crew worked frantically to assess the damage. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7. Lee Soo-young reported, her voice tight with concentration. Main engines are offline, but the precursor systems are still functional. Somehow they protected us from the worst of the explosion. Any sign of pursuit? Do-hyun asked. Choi Yoonji checked her communications array. No, sir. The alien fleet is in complete disarray. Most ships are fleeing the system at maximum speed. I'm picking up scattered transmissions. They're calling us demons. Ghosts, harbingers of the end times. Through the main view screen, they could see the remnants of what had once been the largest invasion fleet in galactic history. Burning ships drifted through space while survivors abandoned their vessels in escape pods. The psychological impact of their victory was even greater than the physical destruction they had caused. But as the immediate danger passed, Captain Do-hyun became aware of something else. The ship felt different, not just damaged but changed. The precursor technology that had bonded with their vessel was more active than ever before, energy patterns flowing through systems in ways that seemed almost alive. Captain, Lee Soo-young called out, her voice filled with wonder and concern. You need to see this. The alien technology, it's evolving. Do-hyun moved to the engineering station and stared at displays that showed energy patterns beyond human understanding. The precursor systems were rebuilding themselves, repairing damage and creating new connections throughout the ship. It was as if the technology had been waiting for this moment. Sir, Kim Ji-won said from navigation, I'm detecting massive energy signatures appearing throughout human space. Multiple contacts, all showing the same power readings as our ship. On the tactical display, dozens of new contacts appeared near human colonies and military bases. Ships that looked identical to the Soul's Fury were materializing out of empty space, as if summoned by some invisible signal. That's impossible, Park Min-ho said. There's only one precursor artifact. How can there be more ships like ours? Before anyone could answer, the ship's communications array activated on its own. A voice spoke through the speakers, not human, not alien, but something far older. It carried the weight of millions of years and knowledge beyond mortal understanding. Inheritor species detected, the voice said in perfect human speech. Combat effectiveness assessment, satisfactory. Preparing full system integration. Captain Do-hyun felt a chill run down his spine. Who are you? What do you want? I am the Guardian Protocol created by those who came before. For 67 million years I have waited for a species worthy of the inheritance. You have proven yourselves in battle against the Void Spawn servants. Void Spawn? Do-hyun asked, the Vextai and their kind. Races touched by the darkness between dimensions, marked for corruption by entities that exist beyond normal space. Your species has demonstrated the courage and capability required to stand against such threats. Lee Soo-young studied her engineering displays as more systems came online throughout the ship. Captain, the technology isn't just repairing itself, it's upgrading us. Our capabilities are increasing exponentially. The Guardian Protocol continued speaking. The precursor fleet is awakening across your space. Each vessel contains the accumulated knowledge and power of the civilization that came before you. You are no longer simply human. You are the new guardians of this galaxy. On the bridge, Choi Yoonji monitored communications from across human space. Captain, I'm receiving reports from every major colony. Ships identical to ours have appeared near population centers. But sir, they're not attacking, they're just waiting. Waiting for what? Do-hyun asked. For crews, the Guardian Protocol replied. Each vessel requires worthy individuals to bond with its systems. Your species will be tested, and those who prove capable will become something greater than human. Kim Ji-won felt changes beginning in her own mind as the ship's navigation systems interfaced more deeply with her consciousness. She could sense dimensions beyond normal space, pathways between stars that conventional physics said didn't exist. The knowledge was overwhelming and exhilarating at the same time. Captain, she said softly, I can feel the ship's systems connecting with my thoughts. It's showing me things, star maps of the entire galaxy, navigation routes through dimensions we can't normally perceive. Similar changes were affecting the entire crew. Park Min-ho found his targeting systems directly linked to his nervous system, allowing him to track and engage multiple targets with supernatural precision. Lee Soo-young discovered she could understand the precursor technology at an instinctive level, as if the knowledge had always been part of her. But the Guardian Protocol had more revelations to share. The ones who created me faced a threat from beyond this dimension. Entities of pure malevolence that seek to consume all organized matter and energy. They sacrifice themselves to repel the last invasion, but the enemy will return. When? Do-hyun asked. Unknown. The void spawn probe our reality, constantly seeking weakness. Your defeat of their servants will draw their attention. You must be ready to face them when they come. Across the galaxy, alien civilizations were reacting to humanity's sudden transformation. Some species sent diplomatic envoys, hoping to gain protection from the new galactic power. Others began forming alliances against what they saw as a dangerous threat to the established order. But perhaps most importantly, the scattered survivors of the Vextai fleet carried word of humanity's impossible victory to the darkest corners of space. In dimensions beyond normal reality, ancient intelligences stirred as they sensed the awakening of their old enemy's legacy. Captain, Yoonji reported, I'm receiving communications from Earth Command. They want to know what happened here. How do we explain this? Do-hyun looked around his transformed bridge, at his crew who were no longer entirely human, at displays showing technologies that violated everything science thought it knew about the universe. We tell them the truth, he said finally. Humanity just inherited a responsibility that spans millions of years. We're no longer just defending our colonies, we're guardians of the galaxy itself. The Soul's Fury and its sister ships began their long journey home, carrying crews forever changed by their contact with precursor technology. Behind them, the broken remnants of the Vextai fleet fled toward the galactic rim, spreading tales of humanity's ascension. But in the darkness between dimensions, something vast and malevolent began to take notice of the newest players in an ancient game. The real test of humanity's worthiness was yet to come, and the stakes were higher than anyone could imagine. The galaxy would never be the same again. The age of human guardianship had begun, whether humanity was ready for it or not. The alien flagship Dominion's Edge was a massive vessel, 5 kilometers long and bristling with weapons. At its heart lay the most terrible weapon the Vextai had ever built, a device capable of cracking planets and boiling away their atmospheres. Admiral Kethfer had hoped never to use it, but the human ghost ship had driven him to desperation. Charging sequence initiated, reported his weapons officer. Planet Killer will be ready to fire in 8 minutes. Kethvar watched his tactical display as more red dots appeared, marking the destruction of his ships. The human vessel continued its impossible dance through his fleet, appearing and disappearing like a nightmare made real. In 30 minutes of combat, he had lost over 400 ships without landing a single hit on his enemy. Sir, his communications officer reported, Fleet Captain Velcron is requesting permission to retreat with the surviving ships of the 7th Battle Group. Denied, Kethvar snapped. All ships will maintain position and provide cover for the flagship. The humans will pay for their defiance. But privately, the Admiral wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. The humans had demonstrated technology that seemed to violate the basic laws of physics. Perhaps some enemies were too dangerous to fight. Aboard the Soul's Fury, Captain Do-hyun studied the tactical situation with growing urgency. The alien flagship was surrounded by hundreds of defending ships, all positioned to protect it while the Planet Killer charged. Getting through that defensive wall would require everything their enhanced ship could do. Status report, he called to his crew. Planet Killer will be ready to fire in 7 minutes. Choi Yoonji reported from communications. I'm intercepting their targeting data. They're aiming for the civilian colonies on Kepler 442b. 3 million people live there. Navigation systems are at maximum efficiency, Kim Ji-won added. But Captain, the alien defensive formation is solid. Even with our phasing ability, getting through will be nearly impossible. Park Min-ho checked his weapons displays. Gravity Lance is fully charged, but sir, even if we get through their defenses, the flagship is massive. It might take multiple hits to stop that weapon. Lee Soo-young's voice carried deep concern as she monitored the precursor systems. Captain, the dimensional drives are showing critical stress indicators. We've been pushing the alien technology beyond all safe limits. One more major phase shift might cause a complete system failure. Do-hyun weighed his options quickly. They could retreat and warn the colonies to evacuate, but 3 million people couldn't be moved in 7 minutes. They could try to fight through the defensive wall using conventional tactics, but that would take too long. Or they could attempt something that might destroy their ship entirely. Ji-won, he said quietly. Is it possible to phase shift directly inside the enemy flagship? The navigator's face went pale. Theoretically, yes. But Captain, materializing inside another ship's hull would create a massive energy feedback. The stress on our systems would be enormous. We might not survive the transition, and if we don't try, 3 million innocent people will die, Do-hyun replied. Plot the course. With shaking hands, Ji-won began calculating the most dangerous navigation plot of her career. To phase shift into the interior of an enemy vessel required perfect precision. One mistake would materialize their ship inside solid matter, destroying both vessels instantly. I can get us into their main hangar bay, she reported. It's the largest open space inside the ship. But Captain, the dimensional stress. Will the ship hold together long enough to complete the mission? Do-hyun asked Lee Soo-young. The engineer stared at her displays, watching energy patterns that human science couldn't fully explain. I honestly don't know, sir. The precursor technology is adaptive, but we're asking it to do something that might be beyond its capabilities. 6 minutes until the planet killer fires, Yoonji announced. Do-hyun made his decision. All hands prepare for emergency phase shift. We're going inside. The Soul's fury suddenly accelerated toward the alien defensive formation. The Vex-Tai ships opened fire immediately, filling space with energy beams and missiles. But instead of trying to dodge through the wall of fire, the human ship simply vanished. Reality twisted and screamed as the Soul's fury forced itself through dimensions that were never meant to carry solid matter. Lee Soo-young watched in amazement and terror as the precursor systems pushed themselves beyond every safety limit, channeling power that could have lit up a small star. Inside the alien flagship, Admiral Kethavar felt the ship shudder as something impossible happened. His sensors detected a massive energy surge in the main hangar bay, followed by readings that made no sense at all. Sir, his security chief reported in a voice filled with disbelief, the human ship has somehow materialized inside our hangar bay. Kethavar's patches went completely white with shock. That's impossible. Nothing can phase through our shields. Nevertheless, sir, they're here. Security teams are responding, but sir, they're inside our defenses now. On the Soul's Fury's bridge, sparks flew from damaged consoles as the ship materialized inside the vast alien hangar. The phase shift had worked, but at a terrible cost. Alarms blared as multiple systems reported critical failures. Hull integrity at 60%, Lee Soo-young reported. The dimensional drives are offline and we're showing failures in multiple decks. But we made it, Captain. We're inside. Through the view screen, they could see the interior of the alien hangar, a space large enough to hold dozens of smaller ships. Alien crew members were running in panic as emergency alarms echoed through the chamber. Minho, Do-hyun ordered. Target the ship's reactor core. We need to stop that planet killer and we need to do it now. Reactor is located 12 decks below us, Minho reported. Gravity lance is charged and ready, but sir, firing it inside the ship will cause massive structural damage. We might not survive the explosion. 3 million people are counting on us, Do-hyun replied grimly. Take the shot. Park Minho targeted the area directly below them and fired the gravity lance at point-blank range. The beam of focused gravitational force punched through deck after deck of alien ship, tearing a hole straight through to the reactor core. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The alien reactor, destabilized by gravitational forces it was never designed to handle, began to tear itself apart. Energy cascades raced through the flagship's power systems as safeties failed and containment fields collapsed. Planet killer charging sequence aborted, Yoonji reported with relief. The weapon is powering down, but their victory came at a price. The Dominion's edge was dying around them, its massive hull beginning to break apart under the stress of internal explosions. And the Soul's Fury, damaged by the phase shift and trapped inside the enemy vessel, was caught in the destruction. All hands, brace for impact, Do-hyun announced as the alien flagship's death throes began. Admiral Kethavar's last transmission was broadcast across his fleet as his ship tore itself apart around him. All vessels retreat immediately. The humans, they are the heirs of the Void Walkers. We have awakened something that should have remained sleeping. As the Dominion's edge exploded in a brilliant flash of light, the Soul's Fury rode the shockwave out into open space. Battered and barely functional, the human ship had achieved the impossible. It had stopped a planet killer and broken the largest invasion fleet in galactic history. But Captain Do-hyun and his crew were about to discover that their victory had consequences they never could have imagined. The ancient technology they carried had been awakened by the battle, and it had its own plans for humanity's future. In the wreckage of the alien fleet, survivors fled toward the galactic rim, carrying tales of humanity's impossible power, but they also carried warnings of forces stirring in the darkness between stars, drawn by the scent of a species ready to inherit the galaxy's deadliest secrets. The real war was just beginning. Admiral Kethvar's rage finally overcame his caution. The reports from his squadron leaders filled him with fury. One human ship had made his forces look like frightened children. His patches burned bright red as he gave the order that would change everything. "All ships attack formation Delta 7, he commanded. "Converge on the human vessel from all directions. I want every weapon in the fleet firing at that ship. Nothing survives this assault." Across the massive alien fleet, 2,000 warships turned toward the lone human destroyer. Their engines flared to life as they accelerated into attack position. The sight was terrifying, a wall of enemy ships stretching across space, all focused on destroying one small vessel. Captain Do-hyun watched the approaching armada on his tactical display. Any normal ship would have tried to run. Any sane captain would have retreated immediately. But the Soul's fury was not normal, and Do-hyun had faith in his crew and their impossible technology. "Jiwan," he said calmly, "I need you to plot us a path through their formation. Not around it, through it. I want to pass between as many ships as possible." Kim Jiwan's hands trembled slightly as she worked at her navigation console. The computer was showing thousands of possible routes, but most led to certain death. Threading a single ship through 2,000 enemies required precision beyond human capability. "Captain," she said quietly, "the math says this is impossible. Even with our enhanced systems, the odds of survival are nearly zero." "Don't trust the math," Do-hyun replied. "Trust the ship. The precursor technology knows things we don't. Let it guide you." At the engineering station, Lee Soo-young felt the alien systems responding to their need. The technology seemed to understand the situation and was already preparing solutions she couldn't begin to comprehend. Energy patterns flowed through the ship in ways that hurt her head to think about. "The dimensional drives are ready, Captain," she reported. "But I'm seeing power levels that shouldn't be possible. This technology is pushing itself beyond all safe limits." "Can the ship handle it?" Do-hyun asked. "I honestly don't know, sir. We're entering uncharted territory." Park Min-ho checked his weapons one final time. The gravity lance was fully charged, but he also had access to other systems that the precursor technology had revealed. Quantum torpedoes that could ignore shields and armor, plasma beams that burned hotter than stars. Weapons that human science said were impossible. "All systems ready, Captain," he reported. "But sir, even with all this firepower, we're facing 2,000 ships. Mathematics says we can't win." Do-hyun smiled grimly. "Min-ho, mathematics never accounted for human stubbornness. The first wave of alien ships opened fire while still at long range. Thousands of energy beams and missiles streaked through space toward the Soul's fury. It looked like a wall of death approaching at incredible speed. "Here we go," Jiwan whispered, "and engage the dimensional drives." Reality twisted around the Soul's fury as it phased partially out of normal space. The alien weapons passed harmlessly, through empty space where the ship had been moments before. To the Vextai crews watching, it looked like their target had simply vanished. But the Soul's fury was still there, moving through dimensions that the aliens couldn't perceive. Jiwan guided the ship along paths that existed between the folds of space itself, appearing and disappearing as she wove between enemy vessels. "Target-rich environment," Min-ho said with dark satisfaction as he acquired locks on multiple alien ships. "Permission to engage?" "Light them up," Do-hyun ordered. The Soul's fury began its deadly dance. It would appear between two alien ships, fire a devastating shot, then vanish before return fire could reach it. Min-ho worked his weapons with surgical precision, each shot carefully calculated for maximum psychological impact. A gravity lance beam deleted a massive alien battleship, leaving nothing but empty space. Quantum torpedoes phased through the shields, of 3 destroyers and tore them apart from within. Plasma streams cut a cruiser in half, the superheated metal glowing like a small star. The Vextai fleet dissolved into chaos. Ship captains couldn't target an enemy that appeared and disappeared at will. Some fired at empty space where the human ship had been. Others held their fire, afraid of hitting friendly vessels in the confusion. "Sir," reported the communications officer aboard Kethvar's flagship, "we're receiving panic transmissions from throughout the fleet. Ships are reporting that the human vessel appears to be in multiple locations at once." Admiral Kethvar watched his tactical display in growing horror. Red dots representing destroyed ships were appearing faster than he could count. His massive fleet was being torn apart by a single enemy vessel that seemed to exist everywhere and nowhere at the same time. "How many ships have we lost?" he demanded. 200 and counting, sir. The human vessel shows no signs of slowing down." Aboard the Soul's Fury, the crew worked with mechanical precision. They had found their rhythm in this impossible battle, each person perfectly synchronized with the others and with their enhanced ship. Jiwan's navigation had become something beyond normal human ability. She could feel the dimensions around them, sense the paths through space that normal physics said didn't exist. Her hands moved over the controls without conscious thought, guided by instincts that came from somewhere else. "Phase shift in 3, 2, 1. Mark," she called out, and the ship twisted through reality to appear behind a cluster of alien vessels. Minho's targeting had become equally supernatural. He could track multiple enemies simultaneously, calculating, firing solutions that took into account the ship's dimensional movement. His weapons spoke with perfect accuracy, each shot finding its target despite the chaos of battle. Multiple targets acquired, firing quantum spread. A dozen alien ships died in the space of 3 seconds, their hulls torn apart by weapons that attacked the very atoms they were made from. But the battle was taking its toll on the Soul's Fury as well. Li Su-yung watched her engineering displays with growing concern as the precursor systems pushed themselves harder and harder. "Captain," she called out over the sound of the weapons firing, "I'm seeing stress fractures in the dimensional matrix. The alien technology is operating beyond any safe parameters. We can't keep this up much longer." "How much longer do we have?" Do-hyun asked, never taking his eyes off the tactical display. "Unknown, sir. The technology is adapting as we use it, but it's also learning its own limits. We could have minutes or hours before something critical fails." Despite her warnings, Do-hyun pressed the attack. Each enemy ship they destroyed now was one less that could threaten human colonies later. The Soul's Fury continued its deadly dance, appearing and disappearing like a ghost ship crewed by the dead. Choi Yoonji monitored alien communications as panic spread through their fleet. "Captain, they're calling us the Death Ship, the Voidwalker, the Hand of Judgment. Some crews are abandoning their vessels without even being hit." The psychological warfare was working beyond their wildest expectations. The alien fleet was destroying itself through fear and confusion. Ships collided with each other trying to avoid the ghost ship that could appear anywhere. Others fired on their own allies in the chaos. But Admiral Kethvar was not ready to give up. Even as his fleet crumbled around him, he was planning one final, desperate move. If he couldn't destroy the human ship through conventional warfare, he would try something that no civilized species had ever attempted. "Prepare the planet killer," he ordered his weapons crew. "If we cannot defeat this demon ship, we will deny them their victory by destroying the human colonies ourselves." On the Soul's Fury, sensors detected the massive energy buildup aboard the alien flagship. Do-hyun realized with cold dread what the aliens intended to do. "They're charging a planet-killing weapon," he announced to his crew. "If that fires, millions of innocent people will die." The dance of death would have to become something more. The Soul's Fury had proven it could destroy individual ships, but now it faced a race against time to stop the ultimate act of alien desperation. "Jiwon," Do-hyun said grimly, "plot a course directly to their flagship. We're going to end this." The black void of space stretched endlessly in all directions. Among the distant stars, a massive fleet moved like a dark cloud of death. 2,000 alien warships traveled together, their hulls gleaming under the light of nearby suns. This was the largest attack force the Vextai Empire had ever built. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars ahead. His tall gray body was covered in patches that glowed blue when he was pleased. Today those patches burned bright with excitement. Soon the human colonies would burn. Soon the upstart species that dared to challenge the Vextai would learn their place. How long until we reach the human worlds? Kethvar asked his second-in-command. 3 days, Admiral, came the reply. Our scouts report the humans have only a few dozen ships to defend their colonies. They will not stand against us. Kethvar's patches flashed brighter. The humans had fought well in smaller battles, but they had never faced anything like this. 2,000 ships would crush any defense they could put together. The war would end quickly. On the sensor deck below, Velthon sat at his station watching the scanner displays. His job was simple: watch for any ships that might threaten the fleet. For days there had been nothing but empty space and distant stars. The humans seemed to have no idea what was coming for them, but then something appeared on his screen. A single dot moving toward their fleet from the direction of human space. Velthon blinked his large eyes and looked again. Yes, there was definitely something there. Sir, Velthon called to his commander. I'm picking up a contact. It appears to be a single ship approaching our position. Commander Zalcor walked over to look at the display. He was younger than most officers, with patches that turned orange when he was annoyed. Right now they were definitely orange. One ship? Zalcor said with a laugh. The humans send one ship against our entire fleet? They must be more foolish than we thought. Should I report it to the Admiral? Velthon asked. No need to bother him with this, Zalcor replied. Just keep watching it. If it gets too close, we'll swat it like an insect. But as the minutes passed, Velthon noticed something strange. The ship wasn't running away or changing course. It was heading straight for the center of their fleet, and the energy readings coming from it were unlike anything he had ever seen. Commander, Velthon said, his voice shaking slightly. You need to see this. Zalcor returned to the station and his patches immediately turned from orange to a worried purple. The energy signature on the screen was massive, far too large for a ship of that size. According to their sensors, the small human vessel was putting out more power than some of their largest battleships. This can't be right, Zalcor muttered. Run a full diagnostic on the sensors. Velthon's hands moved quickly over his controls. All systems are working perfectly, sir. The readings are accurate. Now Zalcor's patches were flashing between purple and red, the colors of fear and anger. Get me the Admiral, now, far ahead of the alien fleet. Captain Yi Do-hyun sat calmly in his command chair aboard the human destroyer Soul's Fury. The bridge around him was quiet and clean, with soft blue lights and simple displays. His crew worked at their stations with the practiced ease of people who had trained together for years. Captain, said Kim Ji-won from the navigation station, the alien fleet is directly ahead. 2,000 ships, just like intelligence reported. Do-hyun nodded. He was a calm man in his 40s with short black hair and steady hands. He had fought aliens before, but never anything like this. Still, his voice was steady when he spoke. Any sign they've detected us yet? He asked. Choi Eunji looked up from her communications station. She was the youngest member of the crew, but one of the best tech operators in the human fleet. Yes, sir. I'm picking up increased chatter from their sensor ships. They know we're here. Good, Do-hyun said. Minho, what's the status of our weapons? Park Min-ho turned from the weapons console. He was a big man with serious eyes and quick hands. All systems are ready, Captain. The gravity lance is charged and waiting for your orders. And our special systems? Do-hyun asked. Lee Soo-young spoke from the engineering station. She was the oldest member of the crew and the only one who truly understood the strange technology they carried. The precursor systems are stable, Captain. Whatever that artifact was that we found, it's given us capabilities the aliens have never seen. Do-hyun allowed himself a small smile. 3 months ago, human miners had discovered something impossible in the asteroid belt around their home system. It was clearly artificial, but older than anything humans had ever found. When they brought it aboard the Soul's Fury for study, it had somehow bonded with their ship's systems. Now their destroyer could do things that should have been impossible. It could move faster than light without using normal jump drives. It could fire weapons that bent space itself. And according to Soo-young, they had only scratched the surface of what the technology could do. They're scanning us now, Eunji reported. Multiple sensor sweeps from different ships. Let them look, Do-hyun said. I want them to see something that will make them think twice. Captain, Ji-won said from navigation. Should I plot an evasive course? 2,000 ships is a lot of firepower. Do-hyun shook his head. No evasion. Take us straight through the center of their formation. Nice and slow, so they have time to think about what they're seeing. On the alien flagship, Admiral Kethover stared at the reports coming from his sensor teams. His patches had gone completely dark, a sign of deep confusion and growing worry. You're telling me, he said slowly, that a single human ship is approaching our fleet, and this ship somehow generates more power than our largest battleships. Yes, Admiral, Zalcor replied. His own patches were now flashing red with alarm. Our best scientists can't explain the readings. The power signature doesn't match anything in our databases. Kethvar turned to his weapons officer. Could it be some kind of trick? A decoy ship designed to make us waste ammunition? 3 squadrons of Vex-TIE destroyers moved through space toward the lone human ship. Each squadron had 12 vessels, their weapons ready and shields at full power. The alien commanders felt confident. 36 ships against one seemed like good odds, even if that one ship had strange energy readings. Squadron leader Vex Thul led the attack formation. He was an experienced warrior with many victories against human forces. But as he watched his sensors, doubt crept into his mind. The human ship's power signature kept growing stronger, not weaker. That made no sense at all. All ships maintain formation, Vex Thul ordered. We'll surround the human vessel and demand its surrender. If it refuses, we destroy it quickly. But Captain Do-hyun had no intention of surrendering. He sat forward in his command chair, watching the alien ships approach on the main display. 36 destroyers was a serious threat to any normal ship. But the Soul's fury was far from normal. Ji-won, he said to his navigator, plot a course straight through their formation. I want to pass between their ships like they're standing still. Kim Ji-won's fingers danced over her controls. The navigation computer showed dozens of possible paths through the alien formation, but most would bring them too close to enemy weapons. Captain, threading through that many ships will be very dangerous. One mistake and we'll be caught in crossfire from all sides. Trust the ship, Do-hyun replied. The precursor systems won't let us down. At the engineering station, Lee Soo-young monitored the alien technology that had bonded with their vessel. She still didn't fully understand how it worked, but she could feel it responding to their needs. The ship seemed almost alive now, eager to show what it could do. All systems are ready, Captain, she reported. The dimensional drives are spinning up. We can phase shift whenever you give the order. Do-hyun nodded. Minho, I want you to fire one shot, just one. Pick the ship in the center of their formation and show them what the gravity lance can do. Park Minho smiled grimly as he targeted the lead alien destroyer. The gravity lance was their most powerful weapon, a device that could focus gravitational force into a beam that tore apart the very fabric of space. He had only fired it once before during testing, and the results had been incredible. Target locked, Captain. Gravity lance is charged and ready. Execute. The Soul's fury suddenly leaped forward with impossible speed. The alien ships that had seemed far away were suddenly right in front of them. Ji-won's hands moved smoothly over her controls as the ship twisted and turned through spaces that seemed too small for any vessel to pass through. The Vex-TIE commanders watched in shock as the unknown, sir. But if those power readings are real, that ship could be very dangerous. For the first time since the invasion began, Kethvar felt uncertain. The humans had proven to be clever enemies, but this was beyond anything they had shown before. How could one small ship threaten his massive fleet? Order the 3rd Destroyer Squadron to investigate, he commanded. But keep them at a safe distance. I want to know what we're dealing with before we commit our main force. As the alien ships moved to intercept, Captain Do-hyun watched them approach on his tactical display. Soon the galaxy would learn that humanity was no longer the weak species it once was. Soon they would understand that some gifts from the past came with terrible power. The black void of space stretched endlessly in all directions. Among the distant stars, a massive fleet moved like a dark cloud of death. 2,000 alien warships traveled together, their hulls gleaming under the light of nearby suns. This was the largest attack force the Vex-TIE Empire had ever built. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars ahead. His tall gray body was covered in patches that glowed blue when he was pleased. Today those patches burned bright with excitement. Soon the human colonies would burn. Soon the upstart species that dared to challenge the Vex-TIE would learn their place. How long until we reach the human worlds? Cathfar asked his second-in-command. 3 days, Admiral, came the reply. Our scouts report the humans have only a few dozen ships to defend their colonies. They will not stand against us. Cathavar's patches flashed brighter. The humans had fought well in smaller battles, but they had never faced anything like this. 2,000 ships would crush any defense they could put together. The war would end quickly. On the sensor deck below, Velthon sat at his station watching the scanner displays. His job was simple: watch for any ships that might threaten the fleet. For days, there had been nothing but empty space and distant stars. The humans seemed to have no idea what was coming for them, but then something appeared on his screen. A single dot, moving toward their fleet from the direction of human space. Velthon blinked his large eyes and looked again. Yes, there was definitely something there. Sir, Velthon called to his commander. I'm picking up a contact. It appears to be a single ship approaching our position. Commander Zalcor walked over to look at the display. He was younger than most officers, with patches that turned orange when he was annoyed. Right now they were definitely orange. One ship? Zalcor said with a laugh. The humans send one ship against our entire fleet? They must be more foolish than we thought. Should I report it to the Admiral? Velthon asked. No need to bother him with this, Zalcor replied. Just keep watching it. If it gets too close, we'll swat it like an insect. But as the minutes passed, Velthon noticed something strange. The ship wasn't running away or changing course. It was heading straight for the center of their fleet, and the energy readings coming from it were unlike anything he had ever seen. Commander, Velthon said, his voice shaking slightly. You need to see this. Zalcor returned to the station, and his patches immediately turned from orange to a worried purple. The energy signature on the screen was massive, far too large for a ship of that size. According to their sensors, the small human vessel was putting out more power than some of their largest battleships. This can't be right, Zalcor muttered. Run a full diagnostic on the sensors. Velthon's hands moved quickly over his controls. All systems are working perfectly, sir. The readings are accurate. Now Zalcor's patches were flashing between purple and red, the colors of fear and anger. Get me the Admiral now, far ahead of the alien fleet. Captain Yi Do-hyun sat calmly in his command chair aboard the human destroyer Soul's Fury. The bridge around him was quiet and clean, with soft blue lights and simple displays. His crew worked at their stations with the practiced ease of people who had trained together for years. Captain, said Kim Ji-won from the navigation station, the alien fleet is directly ahead. 2,000 ships, just like intelligence reported. Do-hyun nodded. He was a calm man in his 40s with short black hair and steady hands. He had fought aliens before, but never anything like this. Still, his voice was steady when he spoke. Any sign they've detected us yet? He asked. Choi Yoonji looked up from her communication station. She was the youngest member of the crew, but one of the best tech operators in the human fleet. Yes, sir. I'm picking up increased chatter from their sensor ships. They know we're here. Good, Do-hyun said. Minho, what's the status of our weapons? Park Minho turned from the weapons console. He was a big man with serious eyes and quick hands. All systems are ready, Captain. The gravity lance is charged and waiting for your orders. And our special systems? Do-hyun asked. Lee Soo-young spoke from the engineering station. She was the oldest member of the crew and the only one who truly understood the strange technology they carried. The precursor systems are stable, Captain. Whatever that artifact was that we found, it's given us capabilities the aliens have never seen. Do-hyun allowed himself a small smile. 3 months ago, human miners had discovered something impossible in the asteroid belt around their home system. It was clearly artificial, but older than anything humans had ever found. When they brought it aboard the Soul's Fury for study, it had somehow bonded with their ship's systems. Now their destroyer could do things that should have been impossible. It could move faster than light without using normal jump drives. It could fire weapons that bent space itself. And according to Soo-young, they had only scratched the surface of what the technology could do. They're scanning us now, Yoonji reported. Multiple sensor sweeps from different ships. Let them look, Do-hyun said. I want them to see something that will make them think twice. Captain, Ji-won said from navigation, should I plot an evasive course? 2,000 ships is a lot of firepower. Do-hyun shook his head. No evasion. Take us straight through the center of their formation. Nice and slow, so they have time to think about what they're seeing. On the alien flagship, Admiral Cathfar stared at the reports coming from his sensor teams. His patches had gone completely dark, a sign of deep confusion and growing worry. You're telling me, he said slowly, that a single human ship is approaching our fleet, and this ship somehow generates more power than our largest battleships. Yes, Admiral, Zalcor replied. His own patches were now flashing red with alarm. Our best scientists can't explain the readings. The power signature doesn't match anything in our databases. Kethvard turned to his weapons officer. Could it be some kind of trick? A decoy ship designed to make us waste ammunition? Unknown, sir. But if those power readings are real, that ship could be very dangerous. For the first time since the invasion began, Kethvar felt uncertain. The humans had proven to be clever enemies, but this was beyond anything they had shown before. How could one small ship threaten his massive fleet? Order the 3rd Destroyer Squadron to investigate, he commanded. But keep them at a safe distance. I want to know what we're dealing with before we commit our main force. As the alien ships moved to intercept, Captain Dohyun watched them approach on his tactical display. Soon the galaxy would learn that humanity was no longer the weak species it once was. Soon they would understand that some gifts from the past came with terrible power. Minho, he said quietly, prepare to show them what we can do.